Then Moses said, I must turn aside and look at this great sight and see why the bush is not burned up. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Come no closer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. He said further, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. But Moses said to God, If I come to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your ancestors has sent me to you, and they ask me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. He said further, Thus you shall say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
So I told a pastor colleague this week that I was going to be preaching about this subject, is God a boy or a girl? And she told me, she said, oh, you are so brave. And she said she had been trying to, her daughter was asking the same question. And she was having a harder time than she thought trying to explain and to talk about it. So I wonder, just take a moment to think about, does it matter what gender we refer to God as? Does it matter what gender we refer to God as? Now, I looked online this week for different points of view on this question. And looking on the internet for different points of view is always dangerous, right? Now, there was a general agreement about this question, though. The agreement was, yes, it matters what gender we refer to God as. It matters what we call God. Now, here's about where the agreement came to an end, though. Now, I found folks on one end of the spectrum who said calling God other than Father or He is dangerous. In the Bible, God has consistently chosen to reveal himself using masculine pronouns the majority of the time. So that's what we should do too, from now to the return of Jesus. Okay, I added that last part. One well-known and influential group said that while God contains all the qualities of both male and female genders, he has chosen to present himself with an emphasis on masculine qualities of fatherhood, protection, direction, and strength. As if protection, direction, and strength are masculine qualities alone. Okay, I did that last part in again too. Now, you will probably not be surprised to hear that this camp also consists of traditions where women's ordained leadership in the church is questioned and not supported. So I did find that the Catholic Church mostly had arguments for using both male and female pronouns for God. The Catholics know their early church history, though, where calling God Mother was not something abnormal in their liturgy or theological writings. For the most part, those who find using anything other than He as dangerous to refer to God also tend to emphasize distinct roles for men and women in and out of the home, and who focus on specific assigned qualities based on gender. In the last 50 years, feminist theologians have called on the church to re-examine the language we use about God, saying that the language we use about God is also a reflection of how we see one another. In 1973, poet Mary Daly famously said that if God is male, then male is God. If we can only imagine God, the creator and sustainer of the universe, as male in our art, our language, and interpretation of scripture, then he's and hims are elevated above she's and hers in our lives together as a society and culture. Now, in my travels on the internet this week and on the other spectrum of things, I also found an article about a Presbyterian, a PCUSA pastor, a man, by the way, who spent all of 2017 only using the female pronoun for all of his references to the divine in sermons and prayers, in worship, etc. He called it the year with her. He shared that his congregation offered both support and eye rolls, I know how that goes, and had a wide variety of opinions and reactions, including one of the congregation's seminary-trained worship leaders who happened to be a woman. She told him, well, you can do that, but I won't be. In our tradition in the PCUSA, we agree that words matter. Language matters in worship, especially language about God. Our Book of Order, our Constitution, says that in worship, the church shall strive to use language about God that is intentionally as diverse and varied as the Bible and our theological tradition. Language that is appropriate describes and addresses God is expansive, drawing from the full breadth and depth of terms and images for the triune God that we witness in Scripture. The words we use matter. Now, words mattered to Moses as well in our story today. Moses wanted a name. He asked God, who am I supposed to say sent me to the Israelites when they ask? And you know they're going to ask. God answers this bold question by Moses, though I'm not sure in a way that Moses finds very helpful. God says, I am who I am. Or it can be translated as, I will be who I will be. Ah, yes, thank you, God. So helpful. I'm sure that's going to settle it for the Israelites. I will be who I will be. We're not going to pin God down or put God in a box. The divine name in and of itself reveals that to us. But poor Moses to receive such news, right? Just as his world is getting more complex with God sending him back to Egypt to go against Pharaoh, he could really use something simple and easy to hold on to. A name. If I can name it, I can categorize it. I can predict things about it, or at least make some good guesses. Just when Moses could use a simpler, more straightforward notion of who God is, God makes things more complex. I will be who I will be. Our world seems to be getting more and more complex. But I think maybe it's not getting more complex, it's that we are more exposed to the complexities that were already there. People who have been told to hide the complexities of who they are, who they have been created to be, are feeling brave and empowered enough to live into who they are. Christian author and transgender woman Jenny Boylan says that in particular, transgender people and people who define themselves differently than just male or female destabilize people's worlds, including their own. Boylan says, it's not like I got up one morning and told myself, I'm going to be transgender because that's a lot easier. And for those of us who struggle to keep up with the words in terms of the alphabet soup that is sexuality and gender identity, transgender people are those who have gender identity or expression that differs from their assigned sex. My guess is that some of you are wondering, why is the pastor talking about this particular topic in church today? But many transgender people grow up feeling like there's not even a place for them in the church. At the PCUSA General Assembly in 2018, our church passed several overtures, acknowledging our past mistakes and being unwelcoming, and affirmed and encouraged all of us to accept people however they understand who they are in regards to gender. I'm guessing there are some amongst us here who know and love someone who is transgender or someone who is outside of the strict male or female box. Someone who, like God does for Moses, helps make our world more complex. Someone who has been brave enough to say, I will be who I will be, and allows us to sort out how we're going to respond. An unknown author said that what we do not understand, we fear. What we fear, we judge as evil. What we judge as evil, we attempt to control. What we cannot control, we attack. We attack people who aren't like us. But maybe it's just that we don't understand and we're afraid. We're more comfortable in our fear than in doing the work of understanding and love. When we worship a God too, we sometimes attempt to control because we do not understand. We attempt to control God by saying that God can only be this and not that. God can only be father and not mother too. God is confined to the words of a book and not ever speaking new words words to us today as well. We try to simplify because the complexities scare us. But Boylan says when you make room for the complex, the world becomes a better place, not a worse one. Jesus told us over and over again to make room, to love people who aren't like us, to embrace the complex. Love God and love your neighbor, Jesus tells us. When we're able to love our neighbors in their glorious complexities, including ourselves with all of our glorious complexities, we might just be able to do that first part as well. Loving God in all of God's glorious complexities. And I think that when the God we worship becomes more complex, we worship a better God. St. Augustine thought so too. If you have understood, he said, then what you have understood is not God. Is God a boy or a girl? God will be who God will be. Thanks be to God. Amen.